Good morning, everybody. We will get started on our work session for Rio Blanco County Board of County Commissioners. Today is June 24th, 2025. Starting this meeting at 9:02. This meeting will not be streamed live on the RBC YouTube channel. We are at 17497 Highway 64, Rangeley, Colorado, 81648. Work sessions are intended to provide opportunities for the commissioners to study difficult issues, gather and analyze information, clarify problems, or give staff direction. No official decisions will be made. Work sessions are on a floating docket. The schedule is provided for informational purposes only. The board may alter the schedule, take breaks during the meeting, or continue an item for a future work session date. We will start with, are we starting with Fairgrounds Plumbing update, Thad White and Nick Smith?
I don't know if they're on, but I think I can.
You don't just get on.
I'm sorry?
Dad just got out.
Okay. Hi, Thad, can you hear us?
Can you hear us?
Oh, now we can hear you. So, as I talked with you on the tour, we received some information, about the fairgrounds plumbing. And the situation is basically where there should not be T intersections. There's a lot of T intersections, which really is causing, if you flush two toilets at the same time, that water comes down the tube, it hits each other, and some goes backwards and some goes forwards. Add to the fact, if you add toilet paper or anything else in there, it's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that I'll let you take it from here on that.
As far as which direction you want me to go?
Well, talk about what you're thinking as far as plans you've already secured for 4th of July, porta potties and wash stations. But then talk about your suggestion about just closing the toilets versus leaving some open.
So in the closing of the toilets, I think we need to close them because I think we're going to have issues of people trying to break in, basically maybe trying to use a stall that's doesn't have anything there. I think that's kind of a recipe for disaster.
And what we had talked about is removing the toilet, the fixture, and just
Yeah, but in that same aspect with it backing up, you know, it's gonna leak no matter what we put down around the toilet seal. And so if we do have a problem with the other two toilets, when it backs up, we could have things that we need to clean up that we don't want to clean up.
So the thought process there then was, okay, so if we cap some toilets, so that there would be less volume going down, and we staggered, maybe did the men's on one side and the women's on another side, we might still be able to have some indoor plumbing going on. But the thought there is, during the 4th and during fair, those toilets have been a ongoing concern with facilities maintenance, having to clean those up, then getting someone out there to help, clean the drain and make sure it's working correctly. So
Yeah.
Do we go down the road where we just say, okay, the indoor plumbing is not accessible, but we have plenty of wash stations and porta potties located throughout, of course, the fairgrounds under the fair stands, try that again, the grandstands. Thank you. Those are not affected. Those are not set up the same way. So,
and also during County Fair, the 4th of July building is open.
which one, Nick?
The 4-H building is open.
Sorry,
And 4-H.
during County Fair, the 4-H building is open also, and there is a significant amount of stalls there.
And those are not currently affected by the backup.
Correct.
So do we open those then for
During the 4th, that is not possible to open because that is where the entertainment and that's the down area for the range call board. They have that building tied up for their meetings there, and then that's where all the music producer, the singer, the band, and everybody is staged for the concert.
That's good to know. So what are your thoughts, commissioners?
I think that you are overthinking it. I would like to give the public a little more credit than that. I think you go in there and you don't need to do anything except block off a stall and say not accessible.
Out of service.
Out of service, and leave urinals and one stall open in each one and leave it there for the public. And if you want to do overflow for porta potties, but I can't see shutting the whole thing off because of one bad actor. Put some cameras up, and I don't care when this happens, that one bad actor's got to be caught sometime. And we just need to start catching the bad actor and not the whole
Punishing everybody.
county suffer for one guy that's messing up.
Well, and it's hard to tell if we've actually had bad actors, or is it just the way the plumbing lined out that caused the issues? So again, I mean, the water, when the video, when they ran the snake down there and they were watching the water, if they flushed once, you'd see the water come up and then drain down. When two toilets hit at the same time, you'd see this start to go down, and then all of a sudden it would just back right up and just blew the camera backwards because the water's going whoosh. So again, how much of that is because of bad actors or just constant usage?
Well, if you have all of the toilets going and you are putting all the volume down there, I can see that happening, but it doesn't happen. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't see that happening when we don't have a lot of activity around there, right?
Right, because typically people aren't flushing at the same time, whereas when you
Right.
get into a situation like Range Call or
So
right there.
if you shut them down to one stool per deal and hang a sign that says it's for people that can't wait, go over to whatever, but I'm sorry, I can't see shutting everything down and just because it might save somebody a.
Okay,
So,
we can do it, you know, it was just my concern that if we do have a problem, being that we know there's a problem, it's just gonna be, you know, a mess for us to clean up, but we can definitely just block one stall off on either side or two stalls off on either side. And hopefully they don't kick the doors down and whatnot.
So can we-
I guess, I'm sorry, Vicky.
Oh, I was gonna say, so in essence, going to like a single, does it make sense to go to like a single? The toilets may be in there, but whereas one person goes in and then locks the door and then uses the restroom versus leaving it open for everybody to be using at the same time. Is that what you're thinking? And I don't know. I mean, for the men's room, there's what, one urinal or two urinals and a Toilet?
In the stool.
And
two
extension
urinals.
1 and 2.
Exhibit hall 2 is not accessible during the 4th of July unless the commissioners want it to be.
And why, that's the one that you're saying, that's for the
That's where Jane's office is, exhibit hall 2.
you know, that's
It's often
different. It's
Jane's
over where Gene's office is.
oh, okay.
And why is it not accessible?
The doors have always been locked during the 4th of July for that. It's just, it keeps people out of there when nobody else is there to, you know, manage people just standing around. But if you guys want it open, I'll open it up and everything can be open and I'll lock it up in the evening.
So there's how many bathrooms in that one? There's one, there's a man and with single toilets.
So in exhibit hall 2, there's one urinal and one stool, and in exhibit hall 2 women's, there are 2 stools.
Okay, so in order to get to that, you have to open up all those big rooms.
Correct.
Okay, that makes sense. So they typically enter the other one from the indoor arena. Is that correct?
Correct.
And everything else would be primarily locked up on the other sides. Okay.
Correct.
Okay. So that makes sense. So, I mean, to me, it makes sense, like Doug said, in that, whatever we're calling it, exhibit hall, one,
One.
we call it, to leave one stool open for each one of the men and women's. Is there a way that, I mean, does it matter? I haven't been in the men's side, but assuming that similar to the women's, the handicapped one, is on the far wall, and you leave that one open for one of them, and then you leave the first stall open for the other one. Would that help with if they happen to flush at the same time, would that be of any value?
I think it will.
So I leave that to you guys to figure that out, but I was just thinking that's might be a help.
Yeah, just leaving the toilets. So if you left the toilets in there, I mean, people are going to try to break the door down to me and get into them stalls that we're going to close off. Or if we take the toilets off and try to seal it at the floor, I mean, we might get away with it and we might not without
I
having
don't
a mess.
Yeah, if you put a tape across it and say it's out of order, I don't see people breaking the doors down.
Okay. Well, I mean, dude, yeah. We won't know who's breaking the door down.
Like, we've had this problem for years, and we've talked about cameras going to see who's entering and exiting those bathrooms, and I think why don't we have that?
I will defer to Trevor. Trevor is here. If you don't mind, guys, I can defer to Trevor.
Okay.
I haven't heard a request to surveil the bathrooms yet, so haven't planned on putting a camera there, but we can get one going.
So would we need one camera? Because then we're talking about not opening two, right? So keeping
It'd just be in
exhibit
the
hall
hall.
two closed. It would just be
You're not gonna put it in the bathroom. You're gonna put it in the hall where people come and go.
Same hall with the same bathroom, I mean, with the door off of it, it's one camera.
And can you do that before 4th of July?
Got too many other things going on, I think, for them.
Now,
Maybe the fourth day, but
so we could do, and I know how Trevor's gonna feel about that, but just an off the shelf camera, but then who's gonna monitor it? Or do you only monitor it if something happens?
That could be the case. I wouldn't mess with it unless something happened. And is there any issue as long as you might notice it, that it's, camera surveillance in order. You're under a survey, whatever. I mean, but if you had it so it was looking at that door that's coming into the arena or coming out of the arena, then it would just be anybody that come and went there.
we do have signs that say audio, video recording in the area already. We'll be putting those up.
Or do we just let it go this year and then whatever happens and address it? Hopefully it'll be addressed next year and we can budget for cameras in that hallway for next year. And just identify any problems as we go along.
I guess, let me ask you this, guys. So have you had troubles with anybody?
Kicking the door in?
So when? How long ago and how many?
That
times?
was, that was last year.
Yes,
Go ahead.
last year, 4th of July, when we locked the doors, we actually had to go out and buy some more substantial locks because two of the doors were breached by people trying to have access to the restrooms, even though we did have the porta potties available for the public use.
One of the doors was the indoor arena and the other door was the kitchen access door.
So it's not the toilet stall doors. It's the doors
It's the
in the
main
big
doors.
doors.
Those doors were busted also.
Yeah, the bathroom door that split the door frame on that one.
And we have in past years where we've had a toilet cordoned off and it's been in the women's usually, where they busted things up or used them anyway and just filled those, but there was no water.
don't know anything about the no water because I can't turn the water off unless I turn the water off to all of them.
Did you hear what Nick said?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, well, you know, we're here for the people. I mean, if we don't want to fix a road, we can just close the road too. You know, that's not the object of the county, is to provide this service, and I don't,
Yeah,
the idea of just stopping it, because I like the idea of getting law enforcement involved and putting some cameras up and catching the people that are doing that.
Yeah, I would agree.
yeah, that's agreed.
And we do have now some security that was added. Trevor, didn't we at the fairgrounds for this year?
Not
I
yet.
thought we added.
In the 4-H building, but not in the fairgrounds or arena area.
See, we did add the cameras in the 4-H building, access to the bathrooms.
Not yet. We've ordered them. They're on site. It's part of the project I'm currently working on.
Okay.
I don't anticipate, I mean, I don't know that it could be any worse than what it has been in the past. It's just we were trying to prevent what's happened in the past from occurring again.
Yeah.
However, so I mean, but certainly,
And last year when that happened, we know who did it and contacted them.
oh, I wasn't aware of that.
That's the way I remember it.
I have no idea.
We had some issues and know who did it.
I guess I would be, whatever we can possibly do, if it's like, I guess, like you said, something that's off the shelf kind of thing, not connected to the system, but it's there if we need it. Or whatever the sheriff's office may have as an option too. And like you say, let's catch who's doing it.
Yeah. We'll get some bathrooms taped off the doors and be ready to go is the way
I think that's the direction
I think that's, yeah.
that we're giving.
Yep.
Okay, and then, Trevor, you okay with an off the shelf that we basically install that battery backup, not to go into the server? I mean, or is there another option that you would prefer?
Game cams are pretty good. They have onboard storage.
And you know what? I personally have a couple of cameras in my house that I very rarely use anymore, and I have service to them. And so it directly would go to my phone anyway. It would be on so I would let you use those until we can figure something out, because I've got a couple of them, but I don't know what that would look like.
Are they
Normally, when a request for a camera comes in, I need to make sure that it's our security protocol system. Like, I mean, if it's going to connect to our network.
No, it would just be on my
If
phone.
it's going to cellular and there's service in that area, then I don't mind.
But the problem we ran into is using that cellular data then will take up away from what's that called? The community Wi-Fi?
Well, not if it's using cellular.
Oh, not if it's using cellular. It won't hit. Okay. So we'd have to see if
It'd
it
be
hit
on
right.
my system as where it would be.
It's completely separate from our network, then I don't have it.
Well, Nick has got something similar to what we're talking about over there right now.
You have to move one.
Nick, is that a possibility that you could move one into that hallway?
Yes, absolutely, and it's tied to my county phone. But it runs off the Wi-Fi. That camera has to have Wi-Fi to work.
There should be Wi-Fi there.
Yeah, but that's why I was wondering, is that going to slow down the other, I mean, because that's video streaming, so that would probably take quite a bit of.
But it's already doing it.
I have it available if you need it, just let me know.
So, and I guess,
Nick has already crossed that bridge. He's using it, so he's already got it slowed down.
and I do think that it's important that we note that it's under survey, that it's being surveilled,
We have
is whatever you call that. Any concern with that legally, Don?
No, I don't think so. I think as long as you maintain the privacy aspect of it.
And I wouldn't hesitate, if we put it in there, I wouldn't hesitate to say, due to previous vandalism. This is why we're having to do this.
And report it. Maybe even put that up, please report, and put a phone number there. so that if somebody else is seeing it, then let us know
Yeah.
so that we can take care of it.
Yeah.
You know, that would be helpful because if, you know, it's kind of like that sign that says if the bathrooms are not in good condition,
Right.
please do, because then you say, okay, well, it was fine until this time period, and then someone reported it.
Right.
Hopefully you would narrow down that time
Time
period
frame.
rather than it's been, you know. Eric, I know you're on the line there. I did have a question about, now from my thinking, the porta johns would be beyond the scope of facilities management, but you guys do cleanup on the bathrooms. How often during 4th of July?
So the custodial team will coordinate morning, afternoon, and evening clean. And then, of course, if there's any issue that arises, Elsa's team will come in and give a hand to Nick and the fairground staff to get that issue cleaned up and resolved.
Okay, so it's 3 times a day for the, like, starting like on Thursday, Friday. Is that Saturday, Sunday, or?
Prior to the event starting, they usually go in early at 6 a.m., do a cleaning. And then we usually have one staff member that is assigned that facility throughout the day, but then we'll hit it after like an event or after lunch. And then, of course, if there's an event coming up in the evening time, we'll coordinate around that and do a cleaning right before that evening event. And it also depends. You have a number of restrooms. So we have the 4-H restrooms and showers. We have the main office restrooms that you guys have been having your conversation about. And then we also have the main restrooms for the grandstands. And so depending on the event location, they'll focus their efforts there throughout the 4-H weekend or throughout the fair weekend.
I did talk to Elsa, and I do have a schedule lined up with her already on everything. The only day that they won't be out there is the 4th unless something happens. And I have Elsa's number for, she's going to be the one that's on call if anything happens the day of the 4th.
So I think that's discussed and staff has direction, I believe.
And I guess my question is, when do we plan to get it fixed?
I think given the scope, we're gonna have to go out for another RFP. I mean, and I can't see doing anything before fair because at this, where we run these 2 events so quickly and thinking that they're gonna have to jackhammer up the concrete. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm not in the construction world, but to me, that seems like that's cutting it really close. Like it might just be better off to wait till after fair, but that's what is your direction? I do think we need to go out for an RFP though, because it's totally different scope than what the first one was.
And I'm fine with that, but I would like to see if we can't get it done before fair. I mean, yeah, maybe we don't think so, but if there's a company that knows how to do this, get in there and get it done and get out. I would put that in there as part of your RFP is what is your time frame? And how quickly can you get it done?
That could be a consideration that you guys use too.
Yeah, I mean, if we can't get it done before, then we can't, but I don't want to just say we don't think we can. Let's get, in my opinion, let's do an RFP, get it out there ASAP and see what we can get it done. Fair doesn't start till the last weekend of July or last week of July.
It starts Nick, you actually set up on what,
Starts the
19th?
17th. It starts Thursday, 17th. We've got county, we've got the air rifle, the 17th, something else in there on the 18th. And then we go. Then we have the horse show on the 25th and 26th. And then the actual fair itself for all the animals is the 28th through the 2nd.
So if we had to, I mean, so I don't know where your shooting stuff is, but the other restrooms are open. 4th of July is done that weekend. That leaves us 2 weeks plus before the fair the main part of the fair, the horse show doesn't start till the 26th, you said?
Yeah, correct.
So we've got 3 weeks there.
So, but really, by the time you get the RFP
Just
published,
saying, RFP's gotta be out there. by the
2
time you
weeks
get that
usually.
done.
You have two board meetings left for then.
And we can do a special meeting. I guess my goal was to have it done by the fair any way, shape or form if we could. So I'd still like to see if we could. If we can't, we can't, but I'd like to look at.
and then
options.
cost will be a consideration too. Once we get the RFP, then we'll know how much. And whether that's a fiscal budget for 26 or whether it's a pull it from contingency.
Are those bathrooms ADA accessible? And if we tear them up, do we have to put them back ADA accessible?
I believe they are. I mean, the doors are wide enough, I'm pretty sure. And then I think the one stall is. So
One stall in each bathroom is ADA compliant. It's got the railings, the wide door, and the ADA toilet.
Okay.
and what
I
about
haven't
the
been
sink,
there
Nick?
much,
Is the
but-
sink ADA also? It's got that right limit, that right level to be able to have a wheelchair roll under it?
Correct.
I think they are.
Okay, I think so. Okay. So what I'll do is go ahead and just, Nick, Nick or Thad, do you want to take your hand at stabbing the RFP for that? Or do you want me to kind of draft something and then you guys refine it?
Me and Antina will get something going.
Okay, perfect. And then just shoot it to me and we'll look it over and make sure we've crossed all our T's and dotted our I's.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Awesome, guys. Thank you for your hard work over there, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Alrighty, so we are moving on to home rule and Western Slope Koga. Don Stearman, floor is yours.
Let's do the Western Slope Koga first because it's simple. We joined the complaint and it's been filed with the court. The state immediately turned around and filed a motion to dismiss the counties out, which we have only had that a little over a week. So we have 21 days from the time of that to respond. I've been trying to coordinate with the other counties that's part of it to see, that we do a joint response and for that, but I haven't been really able to talk to anybody yet. But after the briefing scheduled, then the court will make a determination of whether the counties ought to be dismissed out. And I think I've talked to you about it before, that it's been historic that the county's been knocked out of those things pretty fast by the courts. We've always had the right to appeal, or we haven't yet. And I don't know if any of the bigger counties would want to do that based on this. The Western Slope, though, has a vested interest. I should not be out regardless. In fact, they're not targeted in the motion to dismiss. So they will still be able to continue, and we can still support them to the extent we can if we are kicked out. We're gonna look and see what we can do to stop that. And they've already done the white paper and quite a bit of the research on that before they even brought the counties in. So we may have a shot. We'll see what the courts do on that. So, unless you have any questions on that, that's really all I have is an update on that litigation.
I don't.
No, I'm good.
No, the
Thanks.
home rule is a little bit more complicated. I went back and looked at the statutes. I looked at Douglas County's information, and I also called Richard Neely, who is the Pittman County attorney. There's only 2 true home rule. There's 4 because Denver and Broomfield both are home rule, but they are city and county combined. So it makes more sense for them because, as I mentioned before, the towns and cities, the municipalities that do home rule seem to have a little bit more statutory authority in what they can do in the home rule than what the counties do. I'm really glad I was able to talk to Richard. He had indicated that for the most part, of course, the the goals of Pickens County were a lot different than they are in Rio Blanco County. When they did it back in the late '60s, they were doing it more with, okay, how do we grow this new resort and tourism within Pickens County? And they wanted to enact more stringent land use regulations than most of the counties had at the time. So they did they enacted and the way what I thought was interesting when I look back to the statute, all the commissioners basically, the BOCC basically does a resolution to start the process, but it becomes an election process. There's two elections. The first election is to decide whether or not the county wants to begin in the process of becoming a home rule, and then to elect the commission, which a county our size would be 11 member commission. That 11 member commission would be anybody who elected the registered elector who decides that they would like to run for that commission can run. The county split up in 3 districts, probably using the same districts that you all have now. You don't necessarily have to. You split it up in other districts. 3 members of that commission would be elected from each district, with 2 at large for 11 total. 9 from 3 districts, then and 2 at large. And they would be in charge, and they have, I believe, 241 days from the date that the resolution is passed, or not the resolution, the election is concluded, of whether to do a home rule, to have the charter in hand and to have that ready to go. Then it needs a series of public meetings, public comments on it. When those are done, and the commission makes a determination of what the home rule charter should look like, then it goes back to the voters for election on the home rule charter. Now, one of the things, and I've noticed this in the city of Lamar too, which is another, my firm represents it too, and it's a home rule city, which are a little different. Like I say, it's under different statutes than anything else. But the thing he says is he spends a lot more time telling the commissioners you can't do that because of the charter, because they really limited the commission limited the commissioners' abilities under that charter a lot more than what they could do under statutory. So they actually went a little bit more stringent than what the commissioner. So you have to go back and you have to read the charter whenever you want to do anything and decide whether the charter allows you to do it, versus if you're a statutory county like we are now, and we go back and say, okay, is this broadly under the powers that the counties already has in order to do that? Seems like the primary benefits are the way you tax. You have a little more flexibility in creating taxing districts within the county that is designed to tax the people that are going to receive a benefit of whatever project you want. You have the ability to do bonds and to borrow, on different things easier than you do as a statutory county. And there are
This would void Tater.
no. It's still, you're still subject to Tabor. You're still subject to, if you're increasing the taxes, you still have to go to the vote of the people, et cetera, the same way that Tabor does. And I don't have any examples of this because I was looking for this, but since we only have 2 true home rule counties in Pickens and Weld, and I wasn't able to get a hold of anybody from the Weld County Attorney's Office that could really tell me, but they're a lot larger and they have a lot more urban problems than what we do, even though they still have quite a bit of rural area to it. But it says that they can address local challenges more effectively. And this is from the Douglas County talk sheet, the pro and cons from Douglas County, when they're doing it. And they're talking about affecting local challenges more effectively by crafting policies that reflect the specific needs and values of the community. So I'm kind of just trying to look for something like that. Richard couldn't really help me with that, anything that he felt, except for the fact that they're more stringent land use up in Pickens County, that they did that more than what you probably could do under the regular thing. And then your taxation and your tax enforcement, your broader tax base, according to them, is that you can, may have the ability to establish tax bases different from the states, potentially broadening scope of taxable items. And then it's, home rule can foster greater, citizen involvement and pride in the local government. And that also can be one of the disadvantages of home rule, because when you get too broad of a base making decisions for sometimes it stymies the decision-making process. There's a lot of legal uncertainties on how to interpret it. As stated that there's only 2 home rule counties as it exists now. That's true home rule counties. The Weld County and Pickens County. Pickens, according to Richard, they really don't do anything outside the law. And he said that a lot of the exemptions that, when the legislature passes something that says, okay, this does not apply to home rule local governments, cities and counties, he said typically because they usually have a population limit in most of those things. So most of those really wouldn't apply to Pickens County anyway, and probably wouldn't apply, we're even smaller, so it wouldn't apply to us because we're under a lot of those limits. So he hasn't found a lot of benefit there for Pickens County. Now, one of the disadvantages, because he talked to me about, and I looked in the how it's developed and everything, potential for restrictive charters. I mean, if you get a elector for the commission that develops that charter, they can really restrict the ability of the commissioners to make the decisions that we have the commissioners make on a regular basis. So because you lose that control. Once you do it, you're basically turning it over and say, get us something that hopefully is better than what we have without being a home rule county. And then there's financial costs involved with it, depending on whether or not we can do coordinated elections, how those fall in, the costs, because we're going to have to do a study too. That's another thing, is you don't just turn them loose. You enable them to have a study in order so they can develop some of those things that might be needed for that. And depending on how that works out, it could be a pretty significant cost. And then there's also the cost for legal fees, publication, elections, political considerations, another thing that you take into account for both pro and con. And once you get locked in, it's kind of locked into the political considerations that exist when the charter's done. If you really want to make any changes to the charter, you have to go back to the vote of the people to change the charters, make charter changes. In Lamar, there's been 2 different times that's happened, and those have largely been unsuccessful. But people they like the restriction, they like the control, and so they usually don't do it, because usually those are to give the town council more ability to do things that they wanted to do that the charter didn't let them do. And people pretty much rejected that there in that. And then there's a lot of potential for unintended consequences, things that we haven't thought about yet, but because there's not a whole lot of history in Colorado with home rule counties. And it says if the charter's not well considered, it could cause more problems than it could solve on that. And so there's a lot of different things that it could do, but I think because it's been there, the ability to do home rule since the 60s, and the cities have found benefits for it. And they've used it a lot of, especially little larger cities. Once you get about the around the 10,000 mark and bigger, have done home rule. The smaller towns, municipalities generally haven't. There are exceptions on that though. But the bigger ones, they found that they actually do better local governments under that. The counties haven't seen those kind of advantages yet. And then, Weld County has a lot more of fights with the state and litigation and stuff, because they've been slapped down several times because they've extended what the courts have felt was the authority under their charter to do various things that they've tried to do. And Weld has pushed it in the last several years, quite a bit more than, of course, there's they're the We're the one larger county that's been that. And as the state has become, more divergent politically from the rural areas, Will County has retained a fairly rural, basis background and value. So there's been a lot of conflicts with the state, and Will County has generally been stymied in a lot of things that they've wanted to do by the courts on that. And so those are the things that I was able to kind of come across and right now. And like I say, since there hasn't been a whole lot of that statewide, our resources are somewhat limited. And a lot of it would be, if we decided to do that, a lot of it would be learning how we go, and hopefully we don't fall into that head of unintended consequences. If you have any questions, I'll try to answer them. I don't know if I can or.
Are there some other counties that are considering it right now too?
Just Douglas.
Douglas is the one county that I was able to find that is.
No other western slope.
Douglas County is going to their first vote. Heck, they might have already had it.
I thought they were,
It was in June, so it's close.
should be, yeah. And then, I haven't heard, I don't think they've had it because I couldn't find anything that said how it turned out.
Just to catch me up, for you, for Jennifer, Callie, whoever, why would we want to do that?
And the only reason I've looked into it is because I was asked to, by Jan. So I don't know I think she was trying to say, okay, Douglas County's looking at it. Is it an advantage to us to do it?
Well, I'm real. My understanding, which is not very much, is that we would, not be as restricted by the governor and some of the stuff that he pushes down at us. And that's just, I have no basis for that. That's
Yeah.
just what,
And I think it depends on what it is. Some of the things local government's required to do, if you're home rule, you're exempted from that. They say, okay, if you're a home rule, a town or mostly towns, that you're exempted from those things. And that's one of the things that Richard Neely was telling me, that most everything that they've looked at, that they may want to do something different, they would be exempt by the size.
let me give you an example. The law that the governor just signed with the schools having to report on the parents for not calling their kids by the right name and stuff.
I don't think we would have a ability to not abide by that,
Even if you're home rule.
even if you're home rule. I think that home rule is more designed for taxation funding and the land use, those type of things.
The building permit criteria, it's that kind of stuff. It
Yeah.
doesn't do us any
Well,
good there.
Yeah, it's, those are kind of things are coming down on us, and we all in this community as an overall thing don't like them. And so I think it's just, people are just trying to figure out.
I think
If
so
there's a
too.
way.
But yeah, the home rule allows you to do some things on a local level, but the state still has the ultimate authority of enacting laws and regulations that apply to everybody, regardless if you're home rule or not.
So another thing that
And typically, the home rule counties that are, when they're locked in, and a lot of times they're more restricted, and they're less flexible than you might be as a statutory county.
one of the other things that I thought about in moving this way is that if we did go home rule, we would have to have more than one attorney,
Probably. Yeah.
because it's legally a lot of work.
And so when you talk about that 11-person council or whatever, is that that doesn't replace the commissioners? That's in addition to the
No,
commissioners?
what that is they developed the charter.
So
So,
just charter
yeah,
development.
so they're elected from the, public at large to develop the charter. And then if the charter's passed or defeated, you know, at the end of it, if we just decide as electorate, because it's all the electors of the county that's going to make that decision of whether or not we become a home rule county. The charter would be locked in place, and then that would be disbanded at that time.
Okay.
That's, I was just, okay.
So the charter, the commission is formed pre-voting.
Well, it's formed by the first vote. So, yeah, so if you guys decided you wanted to, and you don't even have to be one. If enough electors want to sign a petition to do home rule, then it could be created that way too. They could circulate petitions within the county, get enough signatures on it, and then it would be referred to the vote of the people too. Any eligible electors that wanted to run for the commission would go to the clerk and recorder's office, file an intent to run the same way that any other elected person within the county would do. And then each district would have its own election. And then the highest number, the highest three from each district would be on the commission, plus there's two at large. And I don't know if that would just be your top two vote getters in the county or how that would work necessarily. And I think the whole county can vote on anybody from any of the districts. So it's not like Rangeley would vote on its three, and Meeker would vote on its three, and then, you know, how it is. So I think everybody votes on everybody, kind of like we do commissioners, even though commissioners are each coming from their own home district. That's the way I anticipated. Like I said, I didn't really look at that too much. And then that commission, after it's established, then you would have to probably supply it a separate attorney, because they would be operating separate from the county itself. And so they would need the funding and money to put together to hire, you know, for the study and whatever consultants they think they might need and things like that within reason. You guys would still have control of the purse up to some extent, but it would be a fairly expensive process, I would think. I bet it would cost you at least $500,000 to do it overall, with an election and all of the public hearings and all of that kind of stuff that they would have to do. And that's just a rough guess on my part. I mean, it's just from other things I've seen, that's kind of the equivalent of it. But it would not be a cheap process in order to do that.
On a cost benefit analysis, it doesn't sound like it would be something to pursue.
And if you had a rogue, and I wouldn't say that you necessarily would, but if you had a rogue group of people that wanted to control the commissioners, felt the commissioners were going, you know, not bounded, you know, by what they felt, they could really use that charter to restrict what the commissioners could do. You'd be limited to what they grant under the charter in a lot of areas. Now, you still have the general powers to you know, provide for the welfare of the people and things like that, but they could restrict those quite a bit. And a lot of things, in fact, that's one of the things that Richard is saying, a lot of things you can do just by a resolution or ordinance within the commissioners and the county level. We have to go back to a vote of the people if we want to do that.
Anything else? I don't have anything else.
Thank you, Donald.
You're
Appreciate it.
If you have any other questions, I'd be happy to try to figure them out for you.
All right, we have fee schedule next. Who's leading that charge?
Commissioners, I think we've all communicated, I've communicated with you individually. Really at issue, I think, are two separate fees. There's actually a total of three fees. One is on the rural exemption and the fee charge that our building department would like to charge. That would be a standard building permit type thing, because what they find themselves doing is as much work to permit that or not, you know, I mean, basically those were unpermitted to begin with, but basically they have to do as much work for that as they would a regular building, except for the inspections. So again, the rural cabin exemption was made so that we, you know, it truly was not a primary residence. It, you know, it met a lot of different qualifications. Well, they have to do as much work for that. So in essence, they developed a fee structure for that. The other fees that that the fairgrounds would like to see is the basically increasing the time period for arena time to a 2-hour time slot at $25, and then there was like a $5 light fee. I need to probably grab that out here to confirm that dollar amount, but in essence, what has happened is we've had challenges in the past with the 1-hour rental fee where one person comes in and they've rented it from 10 to 11. They get there at 10 o'clock, let's say, they start unloading, they get to work, they start doing their thing. And then the thought process is they may start getting out of the arena at that 11 o'clock time period. Typically what happens is it bleeds over and then you have people on top of each other. So by going to the 2-hour block segments, that's well supported by all the other counties and fairgrounds. So I think that is a viable solution. And then just setting a very minimal charge on that. So again, that was kind of the discussion we've had individually. I can text Nick and see if he can join us, and Matt and Leaf, but I think you probably have that information, and really it's just a discussion between the three of you, I think, at this point.
I'm still here, Vicky.
Okay, thank you.
First of all, what your explanation of finishing at 1 hour and trying to get out of the way for the next hour, how is that going to change on our 2 hours? So they're there 2 hours and they have to get out of the way and prepare for the next one. How does that change that?
Nick, do you want to address that, or do you want me to?
So basically what happens on an hour time slot is they show up at their time, and then they take 15 minutes at the beginning to get saddled and ready to go. And then they take 15 minutes at the end. So they're only getting a half an hour of ride time, which is barely enough time to warm up your horses. And then you don't even have a cool down period. But the other thing they also have to do is they have to clean up before the next person can come in. Like that's built into their hour time slot, is they show up, get their horses ready to go, do their riding, and clean up before the next person comes in. So moving it to a 2-hour time slot gives them time to get saddled, warm up, do whatever they're going to do, cool down, and pick up after themselves and be out the door in time for the next person.
So why does that have to come to us? Why can't you just say we're moving this to 2 hours?
Well, we would like that, but that does kind of change the intent of the fee, the reserved ride. Kelly, I think, or Commissioner Scritchfield, I think, wants to weigh in on that.
Well, I guess, I don't know if we want to spend, I will just tell you, I'm not supportive of increasing fees, period, right now, just flat across the board. So it's a principal matter for me. If we want to get into the details and talk about the fairgrounds, I do have some experience over there in doing that. And no, I'm probably not your typical person. I never saddled inside. I always saddled outside. So when time was ready to go, I was able to go in. I didn't have any issues or any concerns with that. If there were people there before and after, we always worked through that with no problems. I don't know if I haven't heard from any constituents that that's a problem. I can tell you the way that I rode horses, an hour is more than sufficient to spend on a horse and in the arena. And again, I may be very different than others. So I think it's a matter of management. If there's an issue and you have a conversation with somebody and just let them know that we need you to, your rental time is from 10 to 11 and we need you to be out by 11. And you have that conversation and it's a done deal. As far as making it a multiple hour thing, again, and I'll just only speak for myself and I don't know about others. I have not, like I say, I haven't heard anything from constituents on this. And so there may be people that would need to pay for 2 hours that would only use it for 30 minutes to an hour. So again, my concern with the fee schedule is I don't think this is the right time to change fees. I think we need to wait until we know where our budget is exactly. And if we think then that raising a few fees that would equate to $1,000 or $10,000, is that going to be enough in our budget to justify the feeling from constituents that we are nickeling and diming them to death? So it's really kind of a principal matter for me.
If we move this to 2 hours, are we cutting down the amount of people that can access it?
No, absolutely not. And the reason I am suggesting the 2 hour time slot with the little increase is that is what has been told to me from the people that use it in the wintertime. There are those people that come in and want just 1 hour that I can accommodate, but it's easy to make everything straight across the board, and they would use the 2 hour time slots. And most people that come already do 2 hour time slots. So it was an easy suggestion for an easy transition.
That there was my thought. If they want 2 hours, they sign up for 2 hours. So that was a thought that I had.
Yeah, if you're using that to justify an increase in fee, I don't see that reasoning. Just to make them do the 2 hours.
Or allow them to do 2 hours is kind of my preference. I mean, if you only want 1 hour and you can be in and out in an hour, you be in and out. If you're not, then we need to have a conversation with them and remind them you really only have it for 1 hour. And if you need it for longer, please sign up for 2.
Okay.
Yeah, I really don't want to, I don't see the reasoning for this fairgrounds thing. I think that can be handled differently than that. Keeping it in an hour, let them rent there for an hour or whatever, and rent it for 5 hours, whatever, as long as they're making the fee and it's done.
The original fee on that, just to get an idea on that. So the individual ride, I'm looking at my previous. Nick, do you have that figure handy? I'm trying to find it here.
Yes, ma'am. I got my fee schedule in front of me.
What was the 2024 or 25 fee schedule?
Going off the 2024 fee schedule, it was $10 for an hour.
$10 an hour. So it'd be $20 for 2 hours versus 25 for the whole 2 hours. So $5 increase.
So it's a $5 increase, but in reality, it is
$2.
50%, because you're going from $10 to $25. So you're going to charge them 150% more, correct?
Well, no, because they're getting 2 hours instead of just the one. So 20.
But if they only are going to use it for an hour, you're charging them 150%.
If they're only going to use it for an hour. Then I think the other option would be to stagger the start and end times too. That would be something that they could look at. But that would be internal policy. If they need to.
Guys, I can just tell you, and I was there for about a year and a half. I never had an issue. So I don't know. I mean, I get you must be having some issues with some people. And I get that. So I'm wondering if just conversations would be of value.
I've had the conversations with the people that came in this winter. And I'll just keep going the way we're going right now.
I guess if you want to change it a bunch, I'd like to hear from some people,
Mhm.
but are we finished with that one?
Mhm.
As far as the
Thanks,
exempt,
Nick.
as far as the exempt, permit or the fee for an exempt cabin, I think that's fair. I think that's fair to make someone, if they're coming in to get a building permit or they're coming in to get an exempt permit, they're using the same amount of time. I mean, it's just, I think that's just fair.
I would agree.
In fact, it's not fair the way we have it right now. I guess would be another way to say that. So I'm up on one and down on the other.
I mean, fees right now, I just don't see this as the time to do it. I'm not saying I would be opposed to it after we know what our budgets are and so forth, then I would be good with that. But right now, I think it's the wrong time.
So continue this conversation.
Or,
Or
you know,
vote on it. We would vote on it in the meeting and decide which way it goes there.
Any other ones?
Nope, those are the only two fees that you'd questioned.
And I just for the record, I would say absolutely no on the clerk and recorders too, but the state again did this to us. So
That one we've required.
yeah, we don't have the control over that one. So that I would be right there with that one, just the same. Just for the record, state.
Does the state benefit from those
Yeah, we pay those.
increases?
When I talked with Dawn, it sounds like all of that stuff just goes on to the state. We get $1 out of most of that
We get
stuff.
some of it, but
We
yeah,
get $1 and that doesn't increase for us. It's just, and I guess we could increase it. Let's not. But the state, all of those other fees, as I understood it from Dawn, goes right straight on to the state. And some of them are like almost double fees. I mean,
oh, they've gone up considerably.
yeah.
Oh, it's
it's
more than
wicked.
double. They
Yeah, it
double
was
it
like
more.
13 for a
Yeah, and went
two-page
to,
document that's now 48.
and I get what it was by the page. So if you're asking for a 50-page document, it's gonna be way cheaper
And
than if you ask for a 1-page document, you still get to pay the whole.
most
thing.
recordings are 2 or 3 pages, not 50 pages.
It's
yeah.
not just that. I can go back to a dealer's fee for selling automobiles.
There you go.
Doubled. 2 years later, it doubled again.
Yeah.
And it went up again. They just keep
Keep
going
doing
and going
Yeah.
and going because the reason it's happening is because of Gallagher, the Tabor.
Yeah, I was gonna say, cause
They
it's,
don't have
it's,
any other ways to get money.
Yeah.
I say, that is the
I had a
reality.
small
It's a
hardback
tax.
when I registered my pickup last
Yeah.
time.
It is nothing more than a tax, and that's how I see
It
fees.
is. You know, they ought to be reasonably related to what the services are. And I don't think that this is, and then I think the automobile fees are not related to how much work it takes to register a automobile that you did last year. I could see maybe a new automobile getting more, but
But it gives them an opportunity to hire more people.
it does a lot of different things.
Because the number of people that are state employed went up significantly in the last 10 years.
That's because to make sure we're not disobeying any rules. So.
There you go.
All right, thank you. Moving on to public comment policy that we went over in the last meeting.
So commissioners, based on your comments from that, I had drafted and emailed you, the 3 separate documents, the starting document, an interim document as with the changes, and then based on that, a proposed final document, for your review and discussion. So I will put the ball back in your court for your direction and make any additional changes or address anything.
And I'm struggling to find your emails because I had those looked up, but I liked your cleanup of the language. I like that a lot. I can just find it. Because it's not in our packet, right?
It is.
Oh, is it in the
Mhm.
packet?
Well,
It was on June
Okay,
18th,
good.
June 18 at 7:08 is when it came in.
I like it also, Vicky. I think you did a good job on it.
Well, let me be clear, Chrissy and I tag teamed on that, so that was.
Okay.
Well, good job,
So,
both
I
of
like
you.
Chrissy and Vicky.
Yeah, I don't see anything that wasn't what we talked about. So thank you guys.
In this month's, or I'm sorry, this week's meeting. So the meeting recordings and things, are we thinking that does that need any more discussion, or are we good with those?
Trevor, can we talk about that for a minute? When we discussed this thing last week or whatever about not doing the live streaming and stuff. That was before we talked about changing the equipment in the room. And since we are going to do that, is that going to make that any easier and more reliable?
It will make it a little more reliable because we're getting rid of the wireless camera, speaker mic, and that kind of stuff.
I'm concerned about the public having access to our meetings. And somehow we need to let that happen, whether it's through a phone line or somehow I think that they need to have access to our meetings.
Every time we create a meeting, it comes with a phone number, so we could publish that. They could also request, access to the meet, or they could watch on YouTube. However you want to do that. There's lots of ways to do it.
So remind me why last week or last meeting, last time we talked about it, we were going to do away with the live streams because of ADA and technical problems.
Right.
So what has changed is the ADA stuff, the rules are still the same. What came down from that ruling was out of the rules committee, and it's more of just a little more forgiveness at the beginning. It's really, they didn't change any of the rules. Am I interpreting that correctly?
They did back off on some of the restrictions. Yes, they did. They did make it easier and more forgiving if you don't have the funds to have the full compliance.
They did. So where are we in that?
I think we're very compliant at this point, based on what we've already done. Is that what you're asking?
Mm-hmm.
What I'm asking is if we do like we have been doing.
Yeah.
We're gonna get in trouble
I don't believe so.
without, I mean, can we start getting the YouTube to do the
Closed captioning.
closed captioning? Thank you. Closed captioning. Will that bring us into compliance? And
I think if we post as we have been and allow end users to use their own closed captioning, because I think you could turn that on YouTube.
Okay.
We don't.
so that's
And then
something,
that becomes a matter of the platform you're using. It's not something we control.
right?
So.
Okay.
If I'm accurate, there was concern that because it doesn't always understand every word, that was a problem. But am I hearing that the fact that, or not fact, but is the language more relaxed enough that we don't have to be concerned about that?
At
this point.
this point, I would defer to Dawn though.
Yeah, it's progressive still in a lot of the things. I mean, they did back off of a lot of the, okay, by January 1, you've got to be here. But, and they've done more of a reasonable, progress, not accommodation, but progress. If you're making reasonable progress on that, based on, the factors, the different factors, the technological, availability and things like that, you're good. And I think we're good right now. I agree with Trevor that we have gone miles and from where we were when this bill first came out to where we are now. And I think we can demonstrate that fairly simply. We still have to make progress. It's not a static. It's just going to continue to move on, as we go. So what works now, if July 1 may not be, in the same position to work in, December next year.
So just for clarification, if we were to become a home rule county, we couldn't get out from underneath.
Can't get out underneath that one either.
Just checking.
Yeah.
Well, that's some of the indications I was getting from people that we could do stuff like that.
Well, and I'd go there, but anyway, so, okay. Well, that's good. So it sounds like we've come a long ways to matching what they we're not there, but we've come a long ways to match what they wanted. And they've come a long ways backed off of those initial rules. Again, I think the scenario was that's not what the state legislators were looking for. I think staff got carried away in creating all these rules and probably had some input from some companies that stood to make a lot of money off of it. And they created this monster, and somebody finally realized, and maybe legislators heard and got some response. You guys need to back off of it.
Kind of crammed out.
Because otherwise, I don't think they would have backed off.
And I think you're pretty on the money as far as a lot of that goes. Also, the state hasn't the capability.
They haven't gotten there neither.
Yeah,
Exactly.
so I think that's probably more of it. The state doesn't want to get sued because they haven't gone as far as the initial thought process was.
That's pretty.
And so
A lot of the meetings that I attended regarding that were, education facilities were having trouble meeting that too.
Oh, I bet.
So I think that had a big impact, more than just the counties stating they were having issues.
because everybody has
In other
to
words, we
comply.
don't count.
Yeah, it's
We do, and they did listen to us,
Good.
but they listened to the schools more, which was helpful.
Yeah, no kidding.
because it's everybody from the state down to the smallest special district.
Oh,
is
I know.
supposed to
I know.
be compliant.
So where a lot of this conversation, I just want to go back to when technology goes down and where part of this conversation started was, our meeting then is prolonged and it takes, then getting it back up and like, how do we manage that so that we are not prolonging our meetings? I mean, how much time do we let staff?
Can I hold that for a second and come back to it? Can you help us understand the difference between live streaming, Google Meet, and is there a third thing that we're doing?
Recording.
Recordings. Why can't that all be the same?
It can all be, but everything you do is another complication. Anytime you add a piece, it's just another complication. So it's not like it's changing the process a lot. It's just another layer. the Google Meets are necessary in order to connect this room to another room or a remote person to the meeting. So I think that's your base level that you need to have is a
Okay.
Google Meet. Adding recording on top of that makes it a little simpler because, doesn't make sense, but adds another layer. But that allows you to then at least have something that you can share out. And then adding streaming just adds processing power and network reliability for the whole system.
So the streaming and the Google Meet, is that happening at the same time?
Yeah.
So we have a Google Meet and that puts 10 computers on the same deal,
Right.
and the streaming puts it out to 10,000 computers.
Kind of, yeah. Puts it out to a platform that then can put it to.
Yeah.
Yep.
Chrissy, did you have something?
Yeah, just to kind of help, because Trevor and I talked with you, Commissioner Overton. I don't know how much the other or everybody else is aware. Just a second, I'll admit.
He's good.
So, a lot of the problems that we're currently having are because the ONT is having issues in the boardroom there in Meeker.
And B being what?
That's where the connectivity is at, correct? So the network connection that's inside that, there's a computer inside that little box that we open the door on sometimes. So they do have it in the budget. They've got parts ordered, but it is gonna be, you said what, the end of the year, hopefully, is when they'll
Probably the end of the summer.
have that fixed, hopefully. But
And
they have
that's,
to
and that
rewire.
includes the stuff on the ceiling moving
Yeah.
everything.
No,
around.
no, the move we talked about last week also helps out because right now we're using, we basically can consolidate computers also. Does that make
Right.
sense? So, yeah,
Yes,
it's
the
just
less
gonna consolidate
computers, the better.
suppliers.
I understand that.
Maybe explain to them what the move is that you're talking about.
Yeah, we talked.
Yeah, we did
Yeah,
it
we
one
know about it.
previous meeting, yeah.
So,
So does that help Jennifer in what you were asking at all?
No.
Well,
Doesn't-
Yeah, and then
Okay.
legally, on the legal side, the only thing that we're required to have is the clerk's official recording.
Which is just a tape recorder.
Yeah, it's just a
Well,
tape
It's
recorder.
not a tape. I
Well,
don't
it,
know.
Audio.
it's the technology equivalent of what
Replace
tape
it.
was when we grew up.
Okay, there we go.
Audio recording.
Hey,
So
what,
it's-
next one I got?
An audio,
There we go.
a recording that's kept by the clerk and recorder, and that is the official recording. Because we started it. Now, if we never started it, we wouldn't be required to continue it, but
Mhm.
since we started it, we're required to continue it. But there is a provision in statute that says that if the technological, for reasons, it fails, that we need to fix it within a reasonable period of time, and I think they said not to exceed 2 weeks. So we're required to try to get that back up. But even then, we're not in trouble if something happens outside of our control that causes that to glitch.
So you can continue the meeting. with-
Yeah, you can continue the meeting without that. And that's the only one we're required to have. So we can continue the meeting with, as long as we have the clerk in there taking minutes of the meeting, that is really the official record. You got official recording and you got the official record. And those are the only things we're required to have. And so as long as and the technological recording, if it goes down, we're exempted from that for a meeting. So if we're start a meeting and Sean says, I can't record, my recorder's broke for some reason, we can still continue with her taking her regular minutes. So we're not done. We just, we want to maybe try to see what we need to do to get that up for that. But there's nothing. And I think they did that to keep us from having a big delay where if we can't record it, we can't have the meeting. And that, but the YouTubes we do, the streaming we do, the Google Meets, they're all conveniences. As Kelly has said, those are more convenient than they are for transparency and access. Now, I like them. I mean, I'm not, especially the Google Meets, that certainly helps us bring in people that instead of coming here and sitting here all day, and Nick and Thad were able to to jump on that, participate in what they needed to participate and then be done. So I like it, but if it goes down, we can still continue on to the extent we can.
So just one thing, I would like a report from you explaining what the Google Meet is, what the live stream is, give us 3 different explanations so that we can go with that.
And study it.
Yeah,
That's
and
fine.
kind of sink in a little bit. I'm sorry, Jennifer, go
That's
back to what you were.
So how long, so let's say it goes down like it did last meeting. How long do we ask staff to try to rectify that? Because it takes a lot of time, that they're trying to make, and then we're sitting there just waiting to see if it comes back up or not, and it prolongs. So like, what is that threshold for us saying, you know what, you've tried to redo it one time and then we just need to move on and have Sean do her thing?
I say just, and I don't think you're really even required to. It's like, okay, that's gone down. Well, okay, we just move on if you want to.
I would say the chairman can just make
Yeah,
that call.
You make that call. I agree with you. It's something that the sport has control of, and you have the right to control your meetings. So
Right.
within the statutory framework. And if you decided, okay, we're not going to do any of this other stuff, all we're going to do is we're going to have Sean and their tape recorder there. That's legal. That's all you really are required to do.
It's actually easier to troubleshoot if you guys just continue the meeting, because then there's audio and video going on, so we can.
Oh,
Yeah. And the only one that
We might
would
get in the
really,
way, we might walk out and unplug some things or move some things around, but as long as you continue the meeting, we'll try not to disrupt you as much as possible. It's actually easier if you just keep going.
Okay.
oh,
Good
well,
to know.
that's good to know.
Yeah.
Look at all the trouble we've been creating, trying to help you.
It's actually just more stressful that you're waiting on us.
Yeah, because then you feel bad.
It's easier to just work on it while you're going.
Okay, so we'll just continue the meetings. If it goes down, well, if it
when
doesn't
it
come
comes
back
up,
up,
just-
then
So are you guys okay with just leaving it like we are then, and just not backing off of what we were doing before?
I think right now, but I think, so 2 things I'm thinking. So back to the question you had asked, and you asked Trevor to explain the 3 things. I'm wondering if we don't have 4 things going on.
We've
So
got a lot of things.
So you've got the live stream.
Right.
YouTube, is
The live stream is YouTube.
it is YouTube. Okay, so that was the question I had. Okay.
Currently.
And so you guys are aware, we do record while we're live streaming. So
Right.
we
But is that all on the same platform? I
Yes.
guess is what I was asking.
recording and YouTube aren't?
Yeah,
YouTube
that's
is-
what I thought.
YouTube is a cloud platform.
Yep.
Recording is on the computer using a program we call OBS Studio.
Okay,
OBS Studio sends the stream to YouTube and also records. So there's YouTube, there's OBS Studio, and then there's Google Meets. I don't want to get too technical.
yeah, but that's what I thought. And that's how come we kind of need that written.
yeah,
report
you could write that out for us.
Or
Yeah,
diagram or
I'll
whatever.
do a visual diagram if that helps.
You're my favorite.
Really would help.
yeah, it would.
And then to stream, we do record it though. So even if we're just recording it and then posting it later, you're still going to show all of the same technical issues that you have if it was recorded and streamed
Right.
live. So it will be the same video. It just won't be as it's happening. It will be released at a later time if it's just recorded and then uploaded.
And in that, can you let us know the man hours, the time that you spend on each one of those?
I
so
can
that we
actually, I
know?
have it all documented.
That would be
Cool.
nice.
I
So
think
that's for my time, not for anyone
Well,
else.
or,
that's a-
yeah, but kind of give us an idea how much man hours we're putting into doing this
Yeah.
so that we can justify it or not.
And include Chrissy's time, because I know that she puts out a lot of time for that too.
I think we can probably come up with a time per meeting.
Good.
That probably be more helpful.
Yeah,
Thank you.
or,
Okay.
yeah, or a time per platform per meeting or something.
Sure.
So
Yeah,
that,
how they all mesh or
Yeah.
don't and so forth. And if we're gonna do one, then that means we are doing the other one or. So, okay. So my second thing is, I think for right now, we continue it as we are, but then I think we wait till we have our, our public relations person on board and really working on the ADA stuff and she's gonna be there to be the one that's staying on top of it. I mean, I know you guys all have, but, since we pulled back a little bit, there's been some things happen. Obviously, some of you are staying on top of it anyway. But then that way we can, when she gets on board and gets working about how this is communicating with the public, she may be able to work with you and
I
come
think
up with better.
The more people we have trained on it, the better, because
Yeah.
there's times when I'm out at a remote site, or there's times people are sick, there's times. The more you have, the more people you have that can handle it, I think the better. And I don't think that just training them is a good idea. I think we should probably alternate who's doing it.
Oh, so they actually,
It's time. That's just a suggestion.
Okay. Okay, so with that being said, then that would take some of this, that's gonna change the way our written policy is right now, right? On the recording stuff.
So my question then would be to you, do you want to pass anything this time or bump it to the next meeting? What are your thoughts?
We can pass it, and then if it needs to be, you're talking about the policy.
The policy.
I'd like to see the policy get in place, and we can always alter that, amend it. That's where I'm at.
Okay, so it currently is reading that we're gonna not be doing recording and
Oh.
that kind of
I
stuff.
should
But
say we're gonna.
we're
bump it
gonna,
down.
this is as if we've
Bump it
changed
back.
it. So when you look at it under the recording part on each one of them, but
Mhm.
Vicky may be able to quickly, I don't know how quickly Vicky and Chrissy are, and maybe it's just a matter of
No,
deleting that recording piece right now.
It looks, I mean, it's saying the official record is clerk and recorder. Recordings are posted on YouTube and retained for 240. I mean, they're still saying that, but if there's technical difficulties, it's not gonna be posted.
I think it's the live stream that you had, that we removed the live streaming from that policy.
Oh, the live stream. Well, okay, I see what you're saying.
So can we just move to approve it? And take the live streaming thing off of it?
Or put it back on.
Yeah.
They took it out.
Well, as I say, and actually, because we don't address it, it's not an issue in the policy. Right? I mean, I don't see anything about live streaming in here, so we could,
Address it at a later time if necessary.
once we get it all figured out, and then we can make it a firm policy.
I see what you're saying.
I was thinking it was in here, but it's not.
I'm not.
So the recording is official. They're posted on YouTube and retained for 2 years. The end of the calendar year.
Yeah,
This
I think the way
Is
that
there
it's
a way
written is
possible?
not,
Possible. There are times when recordings just aren't possible.
Okay.
The computer is broken.
then that's in here, because it says
Is it?
videos may be unavailable due to technical difficulties. So that piece is in there.
That's-
Okay, so and it reads the same thing on each one of them, so
Yeah.
I think we're,
I think we're
okay,
good.
actually, I think we're okay.
Yep, I do too.
Does
Does
that
that
make-
answer your question?
Did you see it differently?
No, if
Okay.
we're gonna, so basically the draft that initially proposed, that will be on the agenda. We're not making any revisions to that policy
No
today.
revisions needed.
Okay. Then the other thing I wanted to point out, and it is a part of my report, is, and I think it's critical at this juncture to mention the significant ADA progress that we've made is actually handling that person. That is gonna be Lynn Lockwood. She does start just after the 4th of July to really have that dedicated staff to focus on the website accessibility. So more your technology accessibility, but also to be your communications person to push out messages and things like that. She's got a lot of bright ideas and things like that that we'll need to address as we go through that. But again, that is significant because you've allocated a significant amount of resources to do that rather than, it being split between, the
That counts
accessibility.
officially as progress.
That is significant progress.
Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly.
So, just to make that point clear, that's a part of the website update that I'm doing today. Hopefully the last one that I'm going to have to do. So anyways, I just wanted to make sure that that was out there.
And very excited about that.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Our last agenda item is CCITF, CDGF, youth tax grants. I had asked for this one to be on here for us to just have the discussion on, where we're potentially at on doing grants this next year. I've been asked by a couple of entities locally if we're going to be doing those. And so part of our policy is that we are supposed to be making decisions in July or August on if we're going to be doing these grants. And so I was wanting numbers on each of these so that that we are making that consideration before July and August to know if we're moving in that direction or not. So Lisa, are you still on there?
Yes.
No, not
Yes,
Rita,
I am.
Lisa.
Oh, sorry.
Unless you want to tell us the number, Therese.
Absolutely not. I was a little confused.
Thank you. Lisa, can you give us the numbers for each of those CCITF, CDGF, and use tax, where we're at with those, and then on where we're at currently on top of, I know we've used some of those, and maybe I'm wrong. For other, we've allocated some of those funds for other departments, other projects.
Okay, so you're wanting CCITF first?
Yes, please.
Let me see if I can. So for budget to actual purposes, you've collected $283,000 of interest this year and had 592,000 budgeted. So you're about halfway to your budget goal for the year. As far as expenditures in the current year, there was $150,000 budgeted for Rangeley School District and then 83,000 for other projects. I believe that was the museum roof. And then let me see. I know at the end of 2024, you had about $22 million in cash in that fund. And I believe that's only gone up. I don't have that cash number in front of me right now.
I have it. April 30th, 2025 is $22,176,624.37.
Okay. Yeah.
And you're saying that Rangeley School District and the museum haven't requested reimbursement for that 150 or the 83?
No. Not through May 31st. I'm looking at information through May 31st.
For the Rangeley School District, I had a conversation with Colleen a few months ago. They were working with a contractor, trying to get the start time, get the things that they needed. So she thought that this summer, May, June, July, they would be able to have that project complete. So this is a carryover from 2024's budget. So that is just that carryover piece there.
Yeah, but it comes out of that figure.
It comes out of that figure, right? Because we've allocated, that's, yeah.
If I could, so just for clarification, the 283,000 in interest right now is included in that 22,176,000. Accurate.
As of April 30th.
Okay, perfect. Okay.
CDGF, where are we at with CDGF?
I am not sure. I'll have to dig around on that one.
You have that one on your spreadsheet.
I only have money that the county has, and that part of it, I don't have it broke out.
Okay.
So let me look and see if I can find you those numbers. I can tell you use tax. Is that the other one you wanted to know about?
Yes.
Okay, so so far for use tax, the county's collected 360,151. And the budget was 1,068,000. Compared to prior year at the same time, the use tax fund had about 464,000 altogether last year. The current year, it's 408,000 altogether. Motor vehicle use tax is actually up as compared to prior year. So you've collected $254,000 in vehicle use tax. And then it's down in construction materials. Construction materials, you've got 106,000 collected this year. Last year, you had 237,000. So you got the county's at about 38% of budgeted use tax revenue. And through May, you'd expect to see about 42%.
And when you say.
And I would,
use tax-
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, Lisa.
I was just going to say the construction materials use tax is probably fluctuates a little bit more. So it's harder to anticipate what that one will be because it's dependent on the size and timing of projects.
You are saying use tax, that's 3.6% county tax. Is that what we're calling use tax, or is some of that sales tax, some of it use tax? How does that break out?
This one, this 408,000 is just construction materials and motor vehicle use tax. Sales tax in the general fund is up considerably from the prior year, and I have those numbers too. Sales tax in the general fund is about $1.9 million right now, and it was budgeted to be $3 million for the year. So it's at 63% of budget. And last year at this time, it was about 1.1 million. And it looks like on average over the months, the county's collecting between $300,000 and $400,000 a month on sales tax. But in April, you had a large sales tax payment from the state for about $1.1 million. And it seems to be from, or it appears to be from a large purchase by one of the energy companies.
So I'm confused on use tax and sales tax. What is the difference?
I would have to defer to somebody else's expertise. I think the use tax in the use tax fund is specific to motor vehicles and construction. In the sales tax in the general fund is probably sales tax on all goods sold.
Basically what it is the sales tax is the tax that's received from sales within the county, whether it's in the city or the towns or in the unincorporated part of the county. Use tax is tax that it's designed to keep people from going to other jurisdictions and buying goods, including vehicles or tractors or construction equipment. Construction equipment vehicles are the easiest usually because we have to have somebody's building a substantial building or addition or improvement on their property. They have to get a building permit, which gets us keys us in that they're going to buy stuff that probably they're not buying in the county. So what it is, it's a recouping from those taxes that would be spent outside of the county.
So it's technically all a sales tax, because if you go to Grand Junction and buy a 2x4, you're going to pay sales tax. If you get the form and you don't pay that sales tax down there and you bring it up here and Deb collects it here, we're calling it a use tax.
Right.
So technically, it's a sales tax.
Well, technically it is, but that's what the nomenclature is on that.
So to make that simple, if Deb collects it, it's use tax. If it comes in another way, it's sales tax.
Yeah, does she collect any of the sales tax
Yes.
itself? I think
Yes,
she does.
yes.
Well, it's all 3.6%.
Yeah.
No matter where it is. That's,
Yeah.
as far as I know, that's not broke out.
Yeah, but she collects it from regardless if it's locally or if somebody brings in a
Right.
good.
But if I buy a new truck and I go to the clerk's office, I pay 3.6% at the clerk.
Local
It
tax.
goes to the state, comes back to us.
Right.
So that technically is not use tax because Deb didn't collect it. It's sales tax. But I'm just trying to
So
get
it's all
straight
one
in
and
my
the
head.
same. It just depends on, so, because you can pay it in the other county and then they are required to send it to this county, right?
Depending on what it is, yeah.
And so,
They started that with automobiles 5 years ago. No
Yeah,
matter
and-
where you
and
buy it,
everything
if it's
for that
registered
matter.
here, we have to get the tax.
right,
Or if it's registered in Grand Junction, we have to pay Grand Junction the
Right.
tax.
right.
Yeah, it doesn't matter where you buy it, it's where you're,
Where you live,
unless
what's your
you're out of
address?
yeah, unless you're out of state.
But the sales tax goes into the general fund where the use tax has its own line item, correct?
That's
There's
correct.
specific use tax that has its own line item and it's, used for different things. And it's a restricted fund, isn't it, Lisa? The use.
The
tax-
use tax, yeah, it
Yes.
has, the use tax has its own fund.
And is that due to what the commissioners have done, is put a restriction on that, or is that a statutory restriction?
I think that's something that the county has decided to do. Not all of the counties have a separate fund for use tax.
And that's my understanding too. It's something that we decided to do. Now you can allocate that in different ways. Where, part of it can go to, different purposes. And I think we've decided to do that in the past. I'd have to look and see what we have to
But
do to change it if you want to.
The reason that a lot of other counties don't do that is because they don't collect it. Is that correct?
No, most counties or cities collected. We're a little odd because the way we're set up, we're set up to where across the county it's the same. And then if it's purchased in Meeker gets the tax. And if it's purchased in Rangeley gets the tax. But yeah, it's collected most.
So if
places.
somebody in Grand Junction comes to Meeker and buys something and they go back to Grand Junction, they have to pay use tax on
Yeah,
it.
if it's something substantial enough that they get, like, let's say they used Samuelson's to buy building supplies and build a house down there, which is probably not going to happen.
Right, same thing.
But yeah, so they would basically have an exempt where they come here and they buy it. And then when they get there, then they'd have to pay the tax based on it. Same way that we do, we issue, somebody comes in and wants to build a house, we issue them an exemption where they can go to Grand Junction or Glenwood or wherever and buy their materials and then come back and pay the taxes on it. They don't have to pay taxes there. They'd have to pay taxes here.
I swear.
No, I got to spite you.
And then,
I know. They're always by Jen.
and then there's always a problem if you haven't done that, we catch you, then you've already paid the taxes in Junction or Glenwood, then there has to be a refund and they come back and it's a big
That's,
pain.
yeah, that is a.
It's a pain when that happens.
So just keep in mind, out of use tax typically, and Lisa, correct me if I'm wrong, you've got Columbine Park, which is funded from that. You have the AAO, the AAA grants for the I think the
Chuck wagon. and
Chuck
Medina.
wagon and Rodino,
Mhm.
and also the transport, I think,
And then
Pioneers and
there are also a DHS fund that's use tax funded,
Just the nutrition program.
and it's just the
And
nutrition.
nutrient.
There's just way too many funds over there.
And so, but we have done that. That's not standard across the state.
That's my understanding. That's something that we decided to do, that we redirected at least part of it. I don't know if it's all of it, but it's part of it in a different program. And probably when it started, it wasn't a substantial amount, or as substantial as it is today. So they just directed those funds for the different purses. Yeah. Maybe it was more substantial.
So let me ask you this. So then. I couldn't read my writing, sorry. So those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 programs then. we don't ever fund them out of general fund. They always come out of youth fund.
I don't think that's right. I think that sometimes you have to fund them with other funds as well.
So then that
If
makes
we
no
were
sense
short.
to me to do, and because if we dip over here anyway, then it makes sense that it's all in one. pot.
Well, in our tax,
Might make it
I'm
simpler.
still trying to make sense of the way we do our sales tax and our sales tax resolution for the county and the cities combined and things like that.
Yeah, seemed like
It-
that was confusing.
I don't know whose brainchild that was. I would hate to go back and Monday morning quarterback, but it certainly seems to cause additional problems that most local governments don't have.
Well, I would hope that in the future, with what we have planned, that all of that will kind of come together and maybe we can get that straightened out a lot more.
More, just
Clear.
cleaner.
Clear,
Yeah,
easier,
it'd be
yeah.
much
Clear
cleaner.
and clean.
Yeah.
I'm hoping to.
So just to, so there's a resolution out there, you're assuming on this use tax that they would have done years ago that we probably need to take a look
Is it?
at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know, yeah, and I'm presuming because I've never seen it.
Okay.
I am presuming that.
Okay.
I don't know how they did it, but they probably have something, either resolution or ordinance that they enacted in order to do that.
Yeah,
So-
I'd be interested to see
Mhm.
why
We'll
they
see,
did
so
that.
do you research that and try to find that one or the other of you?
We can.
That we
Thank
know
you.
what we're dealing with. Thanks.
Did you find those CDGF funds, Lisa? No?
I didn't, but I'll continue to look for those.
Okay, if you could just shoot us an email with those numbers, that way we have something in our hands so that when we make that decision, either next month or August, that, Chrissy, can you please make sure that we put that on the next agenda? Even if we don't, yeah.
Will it be just a discussion or
Or
are you guys gonna be making a decision?
it'll need to be on the agenda because potentially making a decision.
But maybe in a work session too, to work out some of the details on, or just decide whether we are gonna do a grant or we're not gonna do a grant.
We have until August, but I just don't want to forget about it.
I don't think you are.
And
Somebody can.
so so we fund different things with each pot. Is that true, or are they lumped together?
No.
So each pot funds
I
different
think,
things.
yeah, I think it's percentage from my understanding. Is that what you understand, Lisa?
I'll have to look at that again and refresh myself on how
Well,
that's
CC
allocated.
CCITF is projects. They have to be capital
Capital.
Well,
problems.
CCITF is
Mhm.
completely different.
Right, but
Yeah.
use tax, I'm trying to remember how, but CD, that's just our discretionary fund. Okay.
Yeah.
The commissioners.
Vicky, do you have the budget handy on your? You know how we have the little excerpt in the budget? Would it? happen to-
In the books, I bet I
would it
can.
Happen to say?
I bet it will. Good thinking, Laura. There's using your noodle. Let me see if I can
Done
get
for
it
the
in.
day.
See if I can find that.
Where does the money come from for CDGF?
All I have here, CDGF is separate from general fund.
I understand that's electric stuff or something.
The pass back,
Yeah,
electricity pass back.
is that correct?
I don't know the answer to that. I need to make sure I pull that up. But if you give me just 1 second, I think I can get into the budget book here.
I'm guessing it says it's something general fund. Yeah.
And I looked in the financial statements and can't see where the use tax, there's not a lot of detail about restrictions on the use tax fund.
It's Commissioner discretionary grant fund.
The CDGF, yes. is that-
Yes,
Commissioner,
discretionary grant.
So when somebody proposes a grant to us and we can't fit it into like the CCITF, because that's more restricted, then we can reach them
Sometimes can do.
choose between the other two. Is what I'm recalling.
No, I need to give us a little more discretion.
I don't know how that works.
Hello?
Whoa, there.
Yes,
Those chairs, I'm not seeing a real quick link to it, so I'll have to do some research on that.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, we can talk about that next.
Yes.
yes. No, I won't be sit there.
All right. Well, that was the end of our agenda for work session, and so we will adjourn this meeting, and we have a little bit of a break before Board of County Commissioner meeting starts, so thanks, everybody.
Very timely.